Where's Tom?
We're live.
All right, call the meeting to order.
Okay, welcome to the Queen Anne's County Commissioners Meeting. This is a public meeting that is being aired live on our local cable television station, QACTV 7. These media broadcasts provide county citizens an opportunity to watch and review our scheduled public meetings. In addition to our live audience this evening, we are providing remote options for citizens to watch and participate in county commissioner meetings. Citizens may watch our meeting live on our Queen Anne's County website at www.qac.org/live or on QACTV's television channel, Atlantic Broadband Channel 7 and High Definition Channel 507. Citizens may also participate by joining the live Zoom meeting by going to www.qac.org/public comment, and citizens may also email comments to publiccomment@qac.org. Comments received will be read during the press and public comment period on this evening's agenda. We acknowledge everyone's participation, and by attending, you acknowledge that this session is both recorded and aired. Press and public comment will be taken and is limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone caring to speak can please sign the information table outside in the hallway. Comments longer than 3 minutes may be submitted in writing for the Commissioner's review. We will now stand and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the Commission President, Chris Corcorino.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could please remain standing for a minute for the Engelmeyer family. Thank you.
We just concluded a short closed session under the General Provisions Article, Section 3305B1, to discuss personnel, and I believe we did make one decision. So could I get a motion on that?
I move to approve the position of Chief Accounting Officer in the Department of Budget and Finance.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to the approval of today's agenda. Today's agenda for our meeting on January 11th and the regular and closed session minutes from your December 14th meeting and the Sanitary Commission minutes from the December 14th meeting have been circulated for review. Any additions or corrections?
Motion to accept the agenda and minutes as distributed.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. We do have a press and public comment period now. Do we want to do that? Okay. So thank you for taking the time to express your views to the County Commissioners. Comments are limited to 3 minutes in length. Comments longer than 3 minutes may be submitted in writing. Commission respects your desire and right to convey your message freely. When you come forward, please speak at the standing microphone. State your name, address, and topic of interest. In keeping with the dignity of our office, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. So we have some folks here. Okay, good.
Kemp?
Thank you. My name's Jack Kemp, the property at 506 Robert Station Road, Churchill, Maryland. I was born in Queen Anne's County in Ingleside and was a lifetime resident on a very large farm on the north end of the county. I spent 30 years in the last small business and in a very large ag input co-op. Retired back in December, went to work for Schrader's Outdoors. I'm here today to voice my opposition in Ordinance 2109 as written, defining a shooting club, both commercial and private. When an ordinance like this is submitted by a commissioner, the perception to the general public is that the commissioners are in favor. And I don't think that's the case this time by the general public. So I kept it under 3 minutes, but I just want to make sure that I am strongly opposed this ordinance as it's written.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Schrader.
My name's Ken Schrader. I appreciate you having me here tonight. I'm here just to let you know, put the face with the person with Schrader's Outdoors, and just against the ordinance of the number 2109. And our whole family's been in Queen Anne's County all our lives, farmers, and I've been, in 40 years, I've been in the shooting sports, and this is a heritage here in this county. And how can we take something away? It's been here for years and years and years. And we do a lot of teaching, a lot of things like that, and this area needs that. But I just want to kind of voice out, I'm really upset about this. And a lot of people are. And I'm here just to voice and say that. I guess that's about it.
Thank you. Tracy Schultz. Oh, you want to say anything right now? You want to wait? Gotcha. Keith Griffith.
First off, thank you, Commissioners, for voting on the Sudlersville Christmas light decorating contest. It really was awesome to see our town lit up. I want to make one comment on behalf of this 2109. A lot of business ideas are brought to Queen Anne's County. A lot of business ideas are brought to the northern end. I don't know, I think all of them are shot down. Here's an opportunity for a well-established business to come to Queen Anne's County, and it's going to help Millington and Sudlersville both, big time. Pizza House in Millington just closed due to lack of business. This isn't the run-of-the-mill mom-and-pop operation. Go pay it a visit. It's a phenomenal operation that will be very good for that northern end, because it's going to draw a lot of people from a national level to show up there and participate in shooting events. And that's been a gun range for how many years? And then a development was, as it's called, put there. Why did that ever even get approved? I mean, you got to look at the big picture. It was a gun range first. The development went there without issue. I think it's time we stop just crippling the northern end of the county when there's people that want to come and grow their businesses. And I think this is a great opportunity for us. And they're right. Look at the history of Sudlersville. A lot of shooting things go on there. A lot of history with that. A lot of people that have won national events. Mr. Kemp, I believe, is involved with 4-H. It's giving kids outlets. It's better than drugs. There's a lot of different things that need to be thought about here when this decision is made, because I have had a lot of phone calls. I was given a heads up I was going to hear about it from someone, and that person was right. I did hear a lot of feedback about this, and that's why I'm here to speak now. So look at the big picture. I mean, it's, you know, it's no secret that this is something well supported in our community, and, you know, you guys, the ball's in your court now to make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on Zoom for present public comment? Anybody else in the room who didn't sign up who wants to speak? All right, they'll close present public comment.
All right, that brings us to our feature item for this evening, and this is the Joint County Commissioners and Planning Commissioners 2022 Comprehensive Plan Work Session. We'll be reviewing the 60-day comments that we received from the public. We have Lauren Good and Ray Moravak from Wallace Montgomery. They're going to lead that discussion along with our Planning Director, Amy Moordock, and our Senior Planner, Stephanie Jones here. So welcome to Planning Commission members. We have a few of them that are joining us via Zoom. So I will turn the floor over to our consultants and our planning staff.
Not up there.
Can you put them up there, Bruce?
They have to turn on the camera themselves.
Do they know we're ready for them?
Are ready to go?
You message them just so they know we don't have them on camera if they want to be on.
Sharon.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us with you this evening. Again, my name is Lauren Good, and I'm joined with Ray Moravec from Wallace Montgomery. And we are here with you this evening to provide a high-level overview of the comments that we received during the 60-day public comment period. Before we jump into those specifics, we wanted to reiterate what the comprehensive plan's purpose really is, and that is to really capture the vision for where the county wants to be in the next 10 to 20 year period, so taking that long-range look at things. The plan itself identifies numerous factors that have and will continue to influence and shape the community, and it will provide guidance for a variety of items, physical development, economic development, and preservation and everything in between. It also provides guidance for future decision-making related to land use and all of those other topic areas. It's important to remember that the comprehensive plan is a very broad document. It's right in the name, it's comprehensive, so we can't get into specific details on every item, but provide enough information to share existing conditions and set the foundation for the goals and action items, and to set that plan of action for this upcoming planning period. The plan itself is not a regulatory document, so again, it won't contain detailed specificity or draft ordinance language itself. Again, it sets the foundation for those types of implementation items to occur once the plan's adopted. And whether those are ordinances, more detailed studies, projects, et cetera, once the plan is adopted, that's when those more detailed aspects really begin. We had fantastic input during this 60-day public comment period from the public, agencies, and excuse me, and others that we are considering to be part of the technical committee. Through all of those, we received 418 specific comments. So those people took the time to read the documents and provide very well thought out comments. As you can see with the figure on the left, by far the vast majority of those were for the county comprehensive plan as a whole. And then a smaller subset were for the Kent Narrows community plan. Almost 60% of the comments that we did receive were from members of the public, and then about 35% from various agencies. And we'll get into some specifics on who makes up the agency category. These are those state agencies, everyone from Housing and Community Development to the Department of Planning, DNR, and the Department of Transportation, to the neighboring counties, as well as the incorporated towns that are within Queen Anne's County. We did reach out to all of the neighboring counties as well as the towns, and those that you see listed here are those that provided input for us to review and address as we move forward. And then there was a spattering of comments for most of the chapters. I think there was only one chapter that we didn't receive comments on, and that was the appendix where we listed all the resources. So the majority of those comments came and were related to the land use chapter, but then again, environmental resources and transportation also had a great number of comments for each of those. We do want to point out here that while we did receive 39 comments from those that make up the technical committee, so those are county staff people or other boards and commissions, we are addressing those separately, and so the information that you are seeing tonight and as part of this material package is really highlighting comments that we received from the public as well as those agency groups. Once the official comment period closed, We had the great exercise of reviewing each of them and making some initial recommendations. So really we, along with other planning and zoning staff, really worked on this to identify the most appropriate recommendation to be considered to address each of these items. We broke these down into 3 different categories. The first is one block where we're requesting further review by the Planning Commission. These are items that are more significant changes or have more of a wide-reaching impact. They just need to be discussed more in depth, and that will, of course, occur during Thursday's Planning Commission meeting. The second group are those that we termed editorial or clarification. These are minor changes reflecting grammar or the few typos that we missed when we were doing our final review, but also some comments that were requesting additional clarification on information that we had included in the drafts. The third group are those where we identified them as no changes being needed or where no changes were proposed. And that could be because the items themselves were already addressed in another section in the draft. They were more appropriate to operations or handled in a different format outside of the comprehensive plan, or just general statements that didn't identify any specific request for modification to the drafts. All of these items are found in the spreadsheet documents that you've all received copies of. We understand they're small print, but they've also been posted online, so PDFs are there to zoom in to have some better readability for those. But again, just to highlight some of these, and I touched briefly on this, the largest group of comments were those that we identified no changes being needed or proposed, with just shy of 250 comments. Here, again, we heard many statements of support of the draft and the work that has been done to date. Some of those more general statements, additional information requested, or providing, or comments, again, that were already addressed. And then the next group, again, those editorial or clarification comments. So these also included some questions that were asked, some minor mapping updates. These are primarily changes to colors to provide greater contrast or highlighting an additional point of interest, but nothing substantially changing. Providing some references to other content in the plan, or updating language to reflect specific requested revisions that did not change the original intent of the draft itself. Here we are highlighting those types of questions, again, in each of the various chapters. Just summarizing some of the greater points here. So in the introductory chapter, this is really just clarifying some of the state legislation relating to land use and planning that has occurred over the last 10 years or so. For community facilities and services, so it's providing some additional information about the locations and what types of services are provided at those locations, and some changes to the projected school enrollment particularly for Churchill Elementary. Under the land use chapter, this was clarifying the agricultural preservation goal for the priority preservation area and the county as a whole, and then making some revisions to the Queenstown's growth area to reflect what is shown in their current comprehensive plan. Related to environmental resources, here is providing some additional information on wetlands and sea level change storm frequency, and discussions of buffers to protect water quality, and related items. For transportation, this was some additional information on the Trails Master Plan that was created by the town of Queenstown, updating some project dates and amounts for transportation projects, that information provided by MDOT, and then also expanding on some of MDOT's programs that are related and have an impact on the county's transportation system. And when we look at the Historic and Cultural Resources chapter, the major topic here was to describe the difference between national and local historic districts, just to differentiate those two types that are out there. Yes.
What is PPA and land use?
Priority Preservation Area.
Can you explain that to me? Don't bother. Not for tonight.
This is an area of land that the county has identified where they are focusing their preservation efforts, and whether that is agricultural, also forest land preservation, but there are related state programs that look at those as far as funding or looking at preservation goals and whatnot.
It was a state mandate to adopt the priority preservation area maps, and they can also encompass green belts around municipalities based on their municipal growth elements. They're basically all of the areas that are not conducive to commercial development.
You know as much as you did before.
We'll be returning to this, I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure.
For the economic development chapter, it was asked that we confirm some of the figures that we had used, and just ensuring that those are the correct and most up-to-date figures. For housing, we were asked to clarify whether the projections that were highlighted reflected the sewer capacity limitations that the county is facing. And in this case, those projections do not. They were state provided, so that's also something moving forward, a sort of a collaborative effort for related to those projections. And also the potential to explore some additional partnerships to help with some of the housing issues, whether those are with nonprofits or private housing organizations that are currently out there. Again, with the town planning framework chapter, here this is where we were looking at more specifically what the relationship is between the county and the town planning efforts. This item was again to clarify that the growth area for Queenstown and make sure that the figures appropriately were updated to match the changes in mapping that we already highlighted. For community plans, there were some requests to clarify some of the sources of information, as well as to provide some additional information on the US 5301 corridor to the county and Kent Island. And then one other point that we want to bring up here, this is, I believe, the only technical committee comment that we really wanted to bring to your attention right now. There was a request to add a strategy to the Kent Narrows community plan to consider standalone apartment use in the WVC district, and that the technical committee removed that from our recommendations due to the lack of available sewer that's already been outlined both throughout the county plan as well as the Kent Narrows draft. And then the last item under the editorial or clarification comments is to provide some additional acreage calculations showing how much of the various growth areas actually fall within the critical areas.
That's not the same as an allocation, correct? That's not growth allocation.
Correct. They're two different things. Are there any other questions about those sets? Sounds good. Okay. So this next bunch, these are the comments that we received that we identified as needing some additional discussions from the Planning Commission, as well as specific recommendations to direct us how to make revisions to the draft plans. To aid in review of those, there were 76 comments overall that fell into this category, but we tried to group them by similar topic areas. So that's what each of these groups represent. Each group can have, let's say, between 1 and possibly 8 different specific comments, and all of those are identified on the spreadsheet itself. But here, and again, these are items where we will be having a more in-depth discussion on these and asking for recommendations from the Planning Commission Thursday morning during their meeting. But that first group relates to some comments regarding emergency services, asking for identification of some future trends, challenges, and needs, as well as some additional information on services, and particularly the ability for those services to address various types of risk moving into the future over that next 10-year period or so. The second group related to recreation and open space. And here there was more of a request to establish recreational land or facilities that are in proximity to some of those population centers. The third group related to the reservation of sewer capacity, and in particular questioned the reservation of capacity for the Marling Farms and Dominion neighborhoods, citing that these had been reserved for some time, but nothing had happened. The next group related to the adequacy of public facilities. The draft had identified some recommendations to perhaps have APF testing for municipalities, or applying this to growth areas, or having some conditions related to funding of infrastructure. So these comments were citing some concerns that they had related to those recommendations that had been put forward in the draft. The next group related to preservation funding. So this is related to the agricultural and forest preservation funding, not only wanting to be as proactive as possible in applying for those funds that are out there, but these comments were really urging for more advocacy on the county's part to the state in particular, to try to expand the pots of funding that are made available for those various efforts. And then the next group relates to the role of preservation. Here it was mostly statements that the preservation of forests and sensitive areas are very important, of course, but that they perhaps have a different role or a more impactful role related to the nutrient or sediment uptake services that those types of preservation would provide. The Group 7, again, focused on some of these sewer capacity limitations. Here, requesting some more specific proactive recommendations than were already provided in the draft. But then also posing some questions about how the remaining capacity may be prioritized. The draft currently directs that toward commercial uses, so that was the question, whether that is really appropriate. Let's see. The next group related to accountability for implementation of the comprehensive plan, and really recommended some more accountable measures to keep track of what has been done and when, or why not, why things may not have been implemented. The next group relates to litter or roadside trash and the growing prevalence that the commenter was seeing. And this recommendation actually asks for the creation of a trash committee or something similar by the county to help to address that issue. The next group reflects comments regarding growth areas. The current plan has county growth areas and municipal or town growth areas. This was a phrasing that has been used in the past, and it's now the recommendation to really eliminate that distinction and just recognize these all as growth areas, to really eliminate that specific distinction as we move forward. For the next item, it reflects some updates to zoning. One parcel in particular had a change to zoning and was fell within a, I believe this one, it fell within a growth area, so just making sure that the mapping reflects that that zoning that may have changed since the data was initially developed. As some or all of you may be aware, the town of Centerville is currently working on the same process, albeit not as far into it as the county is. So the town wanted to make sure that the draft identified that, and that there may be resulting changes that come out of their process that aren't reflected in the current draft just due to timing. And they did note that they will be coordinating these efforts with the county as they move throughout this process to make sure that there aren't conflicts. The next group is related to the future land use map. In particular, this was a correction to address the recommendations made by the Planning Commission previously, particularly for the village at Benton's Crossing. Then the next is related to a new request for future land use that came into us during the 60-day review. So of course that was after we had the discussions on the future land use issue. So this was for one particular parcel that identified a desire to rezone in the future and be incorporated into the Graysonville growth area. Group 15 relates to environmentally sensitive areas, and while the current language discusses development in these areas or paying particular concern, this request was to really recommend avoidance of all development in those areas, not just having development in an environmentally sensitive way. as many of you know, there is a delay in when data gets collected and when it is official from FEMA's standpoint. So some of the flood maps that they have are several years outdated, and they don't reflect, they reflect past flooding events. So this was really asking that the flood maps are updated as much as possible as new data becomes available, and to keep paying attention to those items. The next group requested strategies to preserve dark skies, so making sure that artificial light isn't shown into the sky or neighboring properties, which can have an impact on the habitats that are out there among, as well as the aesthetics of the community. And then the group 18 requested some additional information on the town of Millington's water and sewer facilities to be included. Previously, they had not been, particularly because those facilities themselves are located outside of Queen Anne's County, but they do have some impact on the portion of Millington that does fall within the county boundary. Group 19 identified some additional threats, particularly declining water quality as the biggest threat to fisheries. So wanting to stress that in that section, and then some additional requests including specific actions or strategies whenever possible throughout the plan related to green infrastructure. The next group relates to agricultural best management practices and recommendations to include utilization of these as a specific item for the implementation list. On-site sewage disposal systems were the topic of the next group, and here there was a request to expand the discussion that occurred in the draft, as well as the requirements or proposed requirements for how those systems and the professionals related to those systems were handled. Group 23 identified aquatic habitats and requested additional information to be provided relating to that discussion. And then there was a request to include a specific implementation strategy related to waterways and providing public access to the water in the county. The county developed the beach to bridge plan several years ago, and MDOT requested that the plan identify some of the alternative actions that they have and are planning to take related to that issue. There were some comments regarding truck traffic and asking for some additional data and acknowledgement that that truck traffic is a significant contributor to the average daily traffic, those traffic counts that the county experiences. There were several comments related to the proposed Bay Bridge crossing, the study, and the proposed span. These comments identified a resolution made by the county back in August, and that the fact that the draft didn't reflect that resolution itself. And there were some related requests for different advocacy efforts, as well as advocating for any future span to have minimal environmental impacts as much as possible if that is to occur. There are some additional comments related to demolition of historic properties and some proposed changes to the process that is undertaken when there is a request for that type of demolition. The county has, there are some established sustainable communities within the county, which is a state designation, and the suggestions are to provide some or identify some targeted revitalization areas within the county, the unincorporated areas of the county in particular, that may be able to access some of those types of funds in the future should those areas move forward with that official designation. And then there were also comments related to a more specific housing analysis, looking at specific needs and capacity, again relating to some of the sewer limitation issues, but in particular looking at these by the various growth areas found within the county. The next group highlights the discussion of sea level rise in the Kent Narrows Community Plan, and really was asking for some additional discussion related to those effects. Comments also encouraged really capitalizing on the Kent Narrows as a key seafood operations center, and what that would mean for the Kent Narrows area. And then the last group of comments identified that there was not a whole lot of discussion related to the effects of COVID. While there was some, it didn't go into as much depth or detail as the commenters would like. And there were also suggestions that the county consider the impacts that COVID might have when it assesses future infrastructure capacity, particularly related to some increases in teleworking or things of that nature. So while probably a longer highlighting of these, that really distills those comments down into these discrete areas where we will be looking at those more in depth again on Thursday and asking the Planning Commission to provide specific direction on how to address each of those areas in the various drafts. Is there anything you wanted to add? Or?
No, I think only to add about the comments received and looking at one of the spreadsheets which identifies the recommended the actions for PC consideration, which will guide staff in Wallace Montgomery in terms of how to finalize this draft to convey to the county commissioners. There are 33 of those comments for consideration, and grouping them as Wallace Montgomery has done for us will hopefully streamline that review on Thursday. And I would add that I don't think that we saw any comments through the 60-day review that were surprises or that the topics hadn't been brought up through the 2-year process of reviewing. And I think that that is an illustration of how engaged the public has been, how successful the visioning sessions have been, that everyone who was interested from the beginning and had been expressing their concerns and their desires had been heard. We had addressed most of the comments, and noting that the largest percent of the comments were points of clarification or topics that we had addressed in different sections of the plan and just kind of needed to redirect some of the commenters to the appropriate spots, speaks volumes for the way Wallace Montgomery has handled the public comments and the access to the documents as they've been drafted. I will note that this chart of everyone's public comments is now available on the County Commissioners website. It is a PDF version that breaks comments down into the three sections that Lauren has outlined, and it is much easier to read than these paper versions, which were cumbersome and kind of difficult to put in a format that was more legible without printing hundreds and hundreds of pieces of paper. But for the community who is community members who are looking for how their comments are specifically addressed that aren't action items, I would encourage everyone to go to the commissioner's website to look at those charts, to track their comments. And when we are holding the workshop, the work session on Thursday, if there are questions about the way staff has redirected or has explained any of the suggestions, please bring those up during the public comment period.
Then just to wrap up our discussion, we did want to highlight that we will be, based on the comments that we've received and some of how we've outlined addressing them, as well as the direction that we received from the Planning Commission on Thursday, we will be revising these drafts one more time to reflect those comments and recommendations. And these drafts will also reflect the updated branding that the county adopted earlier last year. So the documents themselves may look slightly different, some different coloring and covers, if you will. These are just quick shots of the covers. And because the plan will be adopted in 2022, we've highlighted that. So this isn't a separate or different plan. We just updated the date to reflect that adoption year. And then, of course, again, Thursday, there will be the public hearing with the Planning Commission, as well as those requested recommendations. Assuming all goes well during that meeting, the Planning Commission would advise us on the specific ways to address comments and then make an overall motion to forward the updated drafts that reflect them to the county commissioners for their review, which we've identified that providing that introduction to the county commissioners during their January 25th meeting. And then a public hearing was identified for the March 22nd meeting, and a potential vote. So again, assuming all continues going well, the plan will be adopted during that meeting, of course reflecting any additional comments or recommendations from the county commissioners. And then we will have a fully adopted plan for the county to start implementing. So that is it from us. If you have any comments or questions.
So how many of these comments are you going to try and review on Thursday?
There are 76, thank you. 76 discrete comments that we've grouped into those 33 groupings. So our intent would be to have direction from the Planning Commission on each of those, although one vote, if one recommended vote overall. And that would, of course, be in addition to any new items that arise out of the public hearing itself.
Bring a sleeping bag.
That's why we provided these spreadsheets as early as we did. So the county commissioners obviously aren't voting on these recommendations. That's the drafter's job, and our planning commission is the drafter of the document. And they've gotten out their magnifying glasses and have been reviewing the spreadsheets. And so hopefully that when we get to the meeting on Thursday, all of the members of the Planning Commission have had time to read the extensive comments, even the comments that staff suggested that there are no changes needed in case there is anything that is within that comment sheet that begs additional conversation, and that's fine too. But we hope that we can group these conversations together in the categories and discuss any of the proposed changes pretty comprehensively, and that will go much more quickly than needing sleeping bags.
I mean, I just as a comment to some of these topics as they were related up there, the 32, I think the very first one could be an all-day affair is looking ahead to emergency services 10 years out. You better have a big crystal ball with I mean, that could be an all-day conversation. We deal with it on a year-round basis, and it's we have meetings monthly on it. That's not one to take lightly, because public safety is a huge issue here in the county, so.
That level of detail doesn't live in the comp plan. And so that's what we really have to make clear, is that the strategies are overarching, that the specific levels of detail belong in emergency management documents. So.
Well, you're not going to be discussing how many ambulances we need to buy over the next 10 years.
Correct.
I think my read on it was there just wasn't enough meat on the bone, that the reviewer sort of said, hey, this is missing some detail. Let's at least fill in some of this and give the reader a bit more to digest. But I think Amy is right, is that to your point about being there all day for that one topic, at least what I gleaned from reading the comments was, it was pretty, hey, we're here too, please don't forget about it, please include us in this. But I certainly don't have the expertise to go that deeply into it, and I think Amy was right, it's just not necessarily a place for that kind of detail.
So what would be an example of the level of detail that you would be addressing on something like that?
So,
just because public might be hearing this and they're going to show up saying, I want to speak about buying 2 new ambulances. So that if they know in advance, I think sort of the level of detail that might help the public who wants to show up ahead of time.
So the level of detail is really is germane to the strategies and language that are living within the plan itself. And where we receive these kinds of pointed questions, we reached back out to our technical committee. And so we reached back out to Department of Emergency Services staff for their guidance, which we didn't have at the time of this publication of this draft, but we will have their suggested edits, if they do suggest edits. And some of these items really are clarification for the commenters, just in terms of where that level of appropriate detail belongs. And we're not, at this point in drafting and the public input that we've received, we're not being called upon really from any of our commenters to create entirely new strategies or new recommendations. They're really all clarifications of existing language, almost across the board.
So when we reach out to Lake Emergency Services, did we included the volunteer fire departments, all 9 of those, as part of the strategy and everything? I mean, that was all in there, or?
As a response to these comments in particular, we contacted our liaison with the Department of Emergency Services, but the document itself does reflect information from those organizations and information that has been funneled through the technical committee throughout the process from those various agencies.
And all of the county boards and commissions were a part of our technical review, and basically all of the technical corrections and suggestions are a part of the draft. No one has questioned any of the technical input that we've received, because that's the level of detail that we needed to update the plan.
There are a number of categories you will have seen up there that if I have anything to say about it, it would not change the comp plan, because a lot of them have to do with your job to do an updated master water and sewer plan. doesn't belong in the comp plan. You're not gonna force that off on the planning commission.
Other comments or questions?
Amy?
Yeah, well, wait a minute.
Kathy Diotis.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi. So, if we are gonna go through each one of these 76, comments and recommendations, what is the process? And I'm not sure if Amy's the right one to answer this. Are we gonna discuss and vote on each and every one? And then vote on all of it as a whole, or I'm not really sure. I mean, I know that when we went through the, another similar document with regard to land use and so forth, it was, I think I'm just, is there a clear strategy for us to attack this document and do it efficiently but thoroughly? So that's my question.
Well, it's not 76, it's 33.
33 groups.
33 groups, 76 comments.
Right.
So our plan of attack would be to provide highlights of the comments that we've received as we start the discussion related to the comprehensive plan, and to request, and then the public hearing on it would be opened. We would hear those comments, but asking that if commenters have already made a comment, not to repeat it, or if we've identified a comment already, again, not to repeat it, just for the sake of time, to keep the discussion really to new comments or questions, if you will, for that portion. But then we would go back and really more or less bring up this spreadsheet and look at those particular groupings, and sort of have that discussion with the Planning Commission. There may be more discussion on some than others, but then to receive direction about whether you concur with the recommendations that we have put forth, or if you would like to see a different way of addressing them. And then basically at the end of that, once those decisions are made, we would be looking for a vote that we've outlined in the presentation, as well as the Planning Commission briefing memo, as how to address the comments, and then a separate vote for forwarding the revised drafts onto the county commissioners for their review.
Kathy, I think it can be done fairly efficiently by consensus. I don't think we need a vote to vote 33 times.
That's not Thank you.
It just seems to me, now I'm late, I'm the new guy here, so I'm late coming into this process. But you've got 70-some comments and 30-some groups. You've got a bunch of bright people here that can make a decision. I've worked with them in the past. But it still seems to me like you're gonna have an awful big thing to chew in one day, and then ask us to vote on a document that's one of the most significant documents that this county can produce, and it only touches it every 10 years, but it's actually, what, 12 or 15, it seems
Well,
like.
we've been working on it for over a year,
Yeah, but still, the document is fluid, right? It's not done.
right?
We're gonna vote on it, we're gonna recommend to forward something that we don't see the final wording. This is my concern, that's all I'm gonna say.
And I guess on that note in particular, that is why, one of the reasons why we did take additional time to provide supplemental information for each comment, as well as what our collective recommendation would be, to at least use that as a starting point for those discussions. And if there are deviations from that, those are the discussions that we really want to have on Thursday to make sure that that the Planning Commission is in agreement with how to move forward. And then our revisions would be limited to those that are outlined here, as well as the minor clarification or editorial type comments that don't have a substantive change. And they're all very clearly detailed out on that spreadsheet.
So,
This is a comprehensive comp plan review. It's really not, we're not recreating the wheel.
understood. So I guess my question would be, on Thursday, you're really only reviewing those 33 groups. As far as you're concerned, everything else in the comp plan is complete. Is that a fair statement? So,
We've chewed on it for 2 years, and we're tired of it. I shouldn't say tired. There's no more chewing to do.
correct. So as I'm saying, so you're down
Well,
now
that's up
just
to
to
the,
these.
I shouldn't speak for the planning commission, but I think the planning commission,
I think you're doing a good job.
yeah, has been chewing on this, and it's time to let the commissioners chew on it.
Fine, I get that, so I just, for publics, so the majority of your comp plan is complete, we're down to these 69, 70 questions that are in 33 groups, and you're gonna go group to group, and I would imagine you'd have to get a consensus group to group, because I've seen it in the past, if you lump it all together and one person doesn't like one thing in here, you're killing all the rest of it, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so I imagine you have to go through each group and just get a consensus that, okay, we're good on this and moving forward, so you can get to the end and then know that you'll be there.
Pretty much.
I don't want to minimize the importance of each, to the commenter, of each comment made. But most of this has been most of those 33 categories has already been accomplished in the main. So there's nothing dramatic, it seems to me, that needs to happen.
Are you gonna have public comment at the same time on going through each one of these groups?
No.
No.
Not going through each group. There'll be a public hearing after the work session where, because this is it. This is the,
You're saying on Thursday after your work session, then you'll take public comment
Yes.
on Thursday, but after you're done the work session?
that's right.
Not each of the.
Correct.
Nobody's gonna give you any testimony or try and sway your
Because,
decision.
because that was the intent of the 60-day review. The
Understood.
60-day review is, here's the draft, which has been fluid up until that point. So the draft has been shared, each chapter has been shared as it's been developed and amended and updated. And then the 60-day review draft really took in all of the input that we received to date, which is why I think our comments weren't surprising in general. So what will happen now, after everyone took the time to put their comments in writing, and then we had the official input from our state clearinghouse process, our neighboring jurisdictions and towns, and we've afforded them the opportunity to look at that final draft. We're not now looking for additional comments on that 60-day review draft. That window really, truly has closed, and an assessment of those comments is before the Planning Commission now. A vote on what we felt were the substantive issues, where we just really wanted that last bit of guidance, where staff and the technical committee and our consultants didn't want to make a judgment call. We want those items, we want direction on those items and a comprehensive vote. But before that vote, we also want to just make sure, with one more opportunity for public comment during the official public hearing on that final draft. So,
There has to be,
We can
there
lend-
has to be an end to this, or there will
Understood.
never.
No, I totally get it. We can lend margin to you because at 33 groups, at 10 minutes a group, you're at 5 hours. So, that's all I'm saying. That's,
And not only that, I mean, this is, again, and to Bill's point, I agree, this is one of the more important documents that we have to put out. And if you're doing it in the middle of the day, the average person in this county is working, probably across the bridge, maybe don't have time to zoom in, and obviously not going to be here in person. So again, I just think it does some of that a disservice when you're saying you're gonna take public
But they've
comment.
already taken the comment.
I get it,
Yeah,
but it's a
they
hearing, so a hearing is open to the public.
No, this is a work session.
I was told it was a hearing.
There's a hearing
public
following
hearing.
the work session.
Right, after the decisions are made.
No.
No,
No, it's before the decision is made.
No.
no, the vote comes after. Yeah.
Well,
Maybe
So there's a
someone will
work
stand-
session, then the
Maybe
public
someone
will
will
speak,
stand up
then
in
you
the
vote.
public hearing, and we'll all have an epiphany that we forgot something big, and that'll slow it down.
okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying, it's kind of in a sarcastic tone, but it's a public hearing, and it should be accessible to the public, all
It
the
has
public.
been,
I get it, Sharon, but that's why we have our meetings at night, so that we give most people that work during the day a chance to come to that's why we don't do day meetings anymore, because of that very reason, and it just, I don't know. It's just my opinion, I'm like Bill, I have one, so I'm gonna share it.
Very good.
Anything else?
unless you have something for us.
I did want
We're
to,
good.
I did want to make an unrelated comment. I wanted to draw everyone's attention to the new artwork in the hallway. Yes, our GIS, the county's GIS department, Sam Stanton and Tyler Pease had this great idea of putting together a map of the county close to this hearing room. We all look at it as a work of art because this is something we work with all the time, but it's also extremely functional and it looks terrific for meetings in this space, for people who are coming to the meetings and coming to hearings to have that visual of the county as they're entering this workspace. I just really wanted to bring it to your attention and just to commend them on providing that amenity to us. So.
Thank you.
Are we dismissed?
You guys may leave, or you can hang out.
Well, we are to the
That's
present
right,
public
right.
comment now.
Oh,
on
oh, yeah.
on the
Oh, that's
work
right.
session, so we may have some folks that want to comment on the
Plan?
work session.
I know we had
So,
Tracy.
I think Tracy, yeah, had signed up.
Tracy Schultz in Chester, Maryland. I just don't think that the available sewer capacity is the right thing to do to regulate the growth areas and the comp plan. Sewer capacity could change with new technology, and the comp plan is not up for renewal for 7 to 10 years. It seems like it takes longer than that time to get it done. The APFO, which is Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance, is a ordinance that is used to make sure that there are adequate public facilities available. If not, then a developer cannot move forward until they are. If you have a property now that is zoned for development, you might not have enough capacity for it to be developed. I don't agree that those properties should be removed from the growth area either. And then I saw up here a comment number 30. Somebody had a property to come in late and wanted to be added in as a medical. Is that correct?
There was a request for
I'm just wondering how that's going to fit in if there's no sewer available. I mean, if it's medical or whatever it is, if it's not available, it's not available. So I'm just wondering how that's a comment that I had. So I appreciate it, and I'd like to keep my property in the growth area. So thank you.
Anybody else who wanted to speak?
Good evening. Wick Dudley with the Bay Area Association of Realtors. Just want to say thank you all for all the work you all have done the last year or two. It's really quite the effort. Having said that, I do agree with the gentleman on the right that it would be a shame to rush through here when we're so close to the finish line. I know you're talking about 76 comments that'll be reviewed on Thursday, and that's quite a bit. But as was brought up earlier in the presentation, there's actually 418 comments. So I plan on going online and reviewing the spreadsheet to make sure that comments that I have made or other realtors at Bay Area have made are not being swept under this group of 350 comments or so that won't be addressed on Thursday. So thank you all again for your time, and look forward to Thursday and getting this done in a couple months. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the room that has a comment? Come on up.
We also have a virtual.
Hi, Georgiana Winley, Kent Nearest Development Foundation Executive Director. in listening to this tonight, I thank you for your kind consideration and all the hard work that everybody's done. There's one thing that is of concern to, well, many things of concern to us, but most importantly, is it possible to move that discussion that the technical committee recommended that the multifamily units not be discussed by the Planning Commission and that issue, if you saw that slide? And that was cut out, and the technical committee made that decision to cut out a discussion that we believe the Kent Narrows Foundation and the Planning Commission does need to have about having standalone or multifamily residential units be allowed in the Kent Narrows area. The reason for that is if you go back into all of the original comments that were made in the phone calls and the planning sessions and everything else, our biggest issue is workforce housing. One of our biggest issues is that. And to not allow a discussion on that and how we at the Kent Narrows can help to make it better for people would not be right. So I think what we would request is that that discussion be moved into your Planning Commission discussion list on Thursday? So that's it. Thank you very much.
Anybody else in the room? All right, I think we got Kevin on, right?
I'm asking you to unmute, Kevin, and you can start.
All right, am I coming through fine now?
Yes.
All right, I'm Kevin Waterman. I'm the past president of the Bay Area Association of Realtors. I just wanted to thank everyone for all the work that they have done on the plan thus far. Only thing I think is important to note is that while the comprehensive plan is not itself a regulatory document, I think everyone here in the room and watching knows it is a document with regulatory teeth and impacts. It's what the staff, politicians, and the public are all going to be looking to for the next 10 to 12 years when it comes to the county. And as such, I think there's an awful lot of comments that were dismissed and put into that large chunk at the end as ones that were not important, that did not need to be addressed, that are in fact very important. And I hope that the Planning Commission will take the time on Thursday to review a good chunk of those, including those made by the Bay Area Association of Realtors. And I want to say, I believe 50 or more individuals who also echoed those same comments. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody? All right, we'll close that press public comment. All right, well, that concludes our work session tonight with the planning commissioners and the county commissioners. So, want to take
Can I ask one more thing? Can I ask one more thing? Now, you've got some people that have said that their comments were set aside. I don't want to say removed, but they were set aside because they weren't germane or they were discussed, I assume, in other parts of the plan, that sort of stuff. But will there be an opportunity for people to come forward if they look, do their homework, see where their comments lay, whether they're part of the discussion or not, and give them the opportunity to come before us on Thursday and say, this is my comment. I don't understand why we're not discussing it.
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's so important that those comments are available to the public.
Well, and so how do we deal with that? Just on a case-by-case basis?
They're gonna be there on
like
the
this
public
lady
comment.
right here, that just talking about the Kent Narrows Foundation, Development Foundation, I think she's probably thought this out pretty well. And I know these folks, some of these folks down there, they're good people, good businesses, brings a lot of money to this county, and we ought to be listening to them.
Never turn away public comments.
Will there be an opportunity to make a change if we decide we disagree with you that this comment was set aside?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm sure we'll never disagree with you.
No, I don't think we will.
I know we won't, but just in case. All right.
Yep.
All right, that's it, I promise.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, take 5.
Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Should have brought Chris's gavel. She didn't bring. All right.
Calling me back to order.
All right, Commissioners, we have 5 action items for your consideration this evening. And if you want to turn to tab number 3, under New Business. Actually, the first action item is a proclamation for National Mentoring Month. Can I ask one of you gentlemen to please read the...
Of course I do. Just
so happens.
Just so happens. I got a copy of that. All right, Proclamation 22-01. Whereas no matter the background of circumstance, every child in America has the right to go as far as their dreams will take them, with the support, wisdom, and nurturing of mentors who have navigated the path before us. And whereas we honor all those parents and family members, teachers and coaches, employers and co-workers, community and faith-based leaders, and many other who devote time, care, and energy to helping our young people thrive. And whereas we proudly support initiatives across our department and agencies that provide tutoring, community service opportunities, school-based and after-school programs, summer learning and enrichment, and work-based learning opportunities. And whereas we agree that mentorship, is vital to fulfilling this responsibility, expanding opportunity, and helping our children fulfill their potential. And now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Queen Anne's County, do hereby proclaim January 2022 as National Mentoring Month and ask our citizens to mentor our children to the best of their ability in Queen Anne's County. Signed, the Queen Anne's County Commissioners.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioners. Item number 2 on pages 2 through 6 is the bylaws for the Travel and Tourism Advisory Committee. And this new committee was established just recently by Resolution 2028 for the purpose of creating public-private partnerships with travel and tourism stakeholders representing specific industries in Queen Anne's County. So they have developed their bylaws, and they would like now for the commissioners to consider adopting them. So could I have a motion?
I move to approve the adoption of the Travel and Tourism Advisory Committee bylaws as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this?
Yeah, real quick, Heather, if you can come up. Just one quick question. Was there no appetite to have the chairman serve 2 years like we do on EDC? I noticed so they're going to elect every year. No. Okay, I'm just curious why it just seems that consistency works good on the EDC. I figured hopefully they were going to do the same thing there.
I think maybe they're thinking this first year to do a year and then maybe reconsider in the.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 4-0, 1 absent. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Item number 3 on pages 7 through 13 is a commercial real property tax credit request from the Botel Restaurant LLC. And this is a request that was evaluated by the Economic and Tourism Development Group for a commercial real property tax credit for the project known as the Botel Restaurant on the property owned by the Botel Restaurant LLC located at 110 Piney Narrows Road in Chester. And they've met the criteria established by the statute. So could I get a motion on that?
I move to approve the request for commercial real property tax credit for the project known as Botel Restaurant on the property owned by Botel Restaurant Land LLC at 110 Piney Narrows Road, Chester, Maryland, with the condition the project results in the creation of at least 12 new full-time positions within 36 months of completion and property improvements exceed $25,000 of fair market value of the property.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. 4-0, 1 absent. I'm sorry, 4 in favor, 1 absent. Motion carried.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. Next item, item number 4 on pages 4 through 19 is the FY22 Mowbray Park Court lighting. And this is a recommendation from our Parks and Recreation Director to contract with Musco Lighting to replace the tennis and pickleball court lights at Mowbray Park in the amount of $135,296. They have a pre-established government contract for that and budget authority in their capital preventative maintenance account. So.
I move to authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation to contract with Musco Lighting to replace the tennis pickleball lights at Mowbray Park for $135,296.
Again? Got a motion, a second, any discussion?
Yes, that's,
Yeah, because I want to ask about I saw that email, but
Well, that's what we're gonna talk
pickleball
about,
court,
yeah,
yeah,
so.
the multiple pickleball courts, just wondering.
So, the commissioners got that email today, and it was well-written by the Pickleball Association.
Yes, it was.
And.
It was the Archbishop of Pickleball or something.
I had a discussion earlier today with Mr. Chanley about that, and, I want to run this by the commissioners, and he can chime in whenever he like, but right now, Mowbray Park is slated to have tennis courts overlaid with pickleball courts, and then have the lighting put on so you could use it for both. And it makes it kind of confusing, as you saw from anybody that saw the email. We have tennis courts right now at Old Love Point Park that I propose we keep as tennis courts and make Mowbray Park 10 pickleball courts. And that'll pick us to up 10 permanent, but with doing that, we need lights also at Old Love Point for the tennis courts.
That's correct. Because right now, if you take tennis out of Mowbray, that's the only lit tennis court in the county, and therefore you're taking away an amenity from your users. So therefore, you need to either fulfill it or replace it.
So, and you had a price originally for those lights or you think they'll be the same, 100?
I would assume they're probably in that same range as what Mowbray's lights would be. So we're talking, 135, 140,000 for lights at Love Point, and obviously we'll go ahead and get a more definitive price on that.
So we could move forward with approving these lights for Mowbray, have you come to us in the next meeting with a proposal or the meeting after for the lights at Old Love Point so that we can do that, and then you just have to we have it slated to do Mowbray this year in this budget to redo the tennis courts and add the pickleball, but we could just swap that and make it just straight pickleball.
Correct. There might be, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of price adjustment because you're changing out a little bit. We had some preliminary price for 10 pickleball courts at
Over top
Mowbray.
of an existing tennis court.
Over
Right.
top,
Uh-huh.
not starting from the ground up. And we're estimating it's going to be about $220,000. So you're talking maybe $15,000 more than what you guys already approved on the November 9th meeting. And we're trying to get in contact with the company to firm that up. And, therefore, once we get that price, I can forward that up to the county administrator, and then we can take, whatever necessary steps from there. But I would assume there would have to be some sort of adjustment, to the action.
So why don't, Jim, since we could do that quickly, and we could take up the lights in the next budget, obviously we're walking right into the budget session, the lights for Love Point, but go ahead and just redirect what we have to go ahead and get Mowbray done this year with the
I'd like to hear
pickleball.
also, do you have any read of how many pickleball players we've got versus tennis?
I do know this because it's been told to me several times. Just up in the Kent Island area, the Krabby pickleball players, and this is where the letter originated from, they have about 200 members. That's just in that
Kent
Kent Island.
tennis players?
Tennis players, it's hard to gauge how many there are.
When you're allotting courts, you need to be able to make that gauge, and I think there are a
You
hell
do.
of a lot more pickleball players at this point.
There probably are at this point in time because obviously that's the game du jour. I mean, that's what everybody's playing and turning to. But you still have folks that still play tennis. And tennis players, they play early in the morning or in the evening time when it's not 100 degrees out in the
I don't
dead
think
of.
lights are going to be as critical to them in the short term. You know what I mean?
Right, but, to Steve's point, that we're going to go from having, which we've already budgeted to redo Mowbray Park, their tennis courts, and keep them tennis courts, but add pickleball as an overlay. So we get rid of that portion of the tennis portion of it and just strictly stick with pickleball. We're picking up the 10 permanent pickleball, 24/7 there with lights, and we're putting lights at Old Love Point for tennis, which is already tennis, so we're not doing anything to those courts, correct?
Correct.
So that's already tennis, and then if, we come back in a year or two and the need is greater, then we look at it again. But right now, I think it's a win-win for everybody to light both sets
Right.
and have pickleball and or tennis at Old Love Point, that's a good thing.
And the other thing is Mowbray is, it's like their home base. You've already have a following of 200 or so people that go there and play, several days out of the week. So you already have a captive audience. Now it's just making sure that the tennis players that are at Mowbray still have a place to go, what is a reasonable, distance. And from Mowbray to Old Love Point, you're talking, what, 2.5 miles? 2 miles.
It's 2 miles on Google Earth.
Yeah, so.
As the crow flies.
How many tennis courts are there down at Old Love?
3. And then there's also the high school ones, but the high school ones you can only use.
Is 10 committed pickleball courts, is that gonna more or less cover with their needs, or are we just?
I think that is
Very good start.
very good start.
And then we maybe can get some more throughout the other parts of the county.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then that'll give them a traveling.
And we still do have that option in other parts of the county where there are overlays. And that's what a lot of jurisdictions are doing now, because they can't come up with the capital funds to just create just a pickleball place, unto itself. So the overlay is a viable option. But if you have the opportunity to build, a specific one, especially where you already have a captive audience, I think it's a great idea to cash in on that, so to speak.
So what's the motion then?
Well, the motion is that the lights go in there, but what they'll do is they're gonna come back and they're gonna change Mowbray to strictly 10 pickleball. No tennis there, just pickleball, and then
He's gotta come
put
back with a
lights in,
budget on that,
right, come,
with the
yeah.
budget difference.
And then come for lights at Old Love
Well,
Point.
do you want to just?
We're just voting on this motion.
You
then.
could, or do you want to hold this and
We
have
just
come
hold
back
it
with a
and do it as
comprehensive
one.
package?
Was
do the
that
whole
gonna slow
thing?
you down if we hold this?
I
mean, we gotta get in line for this, I know.
For the court lighting, and I would say for the court lighting, it
We
would.
got the motion to second. Let's-
And it's already, we have to do it anyways.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Yep.
4 in favor, 1 absent.
Yep.
Right.
So you got the lights, you got the direction to take it all pickleball and light the other tennis courts.
And I'll be back in 2 weeks.
That's right. We don't, it's not a meeting unless you come up here asking us for something, so.
Good, I'm glad to be invited.
You can stay there. We got one more.
Stand
meeting.
That's
One
right.
more, yeah.
Stay there.
All right, item number 5, our last item, item 5, on pages 20 and 22, is a capital equipment request for a new Kubota skid steer loader for the Parks Department, utilizing the Sourcewell Government Discount Program. So can I get a motion on that, please?
I move to authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation to purchase a Kubota skid loader from Burke Equipment in Felton, Delaware for $68,970.31, funding to come from the Department of Parks and Recreation capital equipment budget.
Is this replacing something? Oh, second, I'm sorry, second. Is this replacing something, Steve, or?
It is a newer one for one that we have. We're taking our old one and we're going to move our old one up to Crumpton because they don't have anything to utilize that. So it is, yes, a replacement.
You're adding so you don't have to haul equipment all the way up and down the county.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, that's, all right. Okay.
Second?
Oh, yes, I wasn't second.
You a second?
I wasn't second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 4 in favor,
I
1 not
seconded
here.
before I comment.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Chanley. That's all the action items we have for this evening, Commissioners. We do have one piece of business under legislation, a bill number 2201 for Public Facilities Bond Authorization of 2022 for introduction. Tab 7.
I'll introduce it.
All right. Okay, thank you, Commissioner. That is all of our items for this evening, so we can go into roundtable.
Do we? No more press public comment, right? Everybody's gone?
Everyone's pretty much
All right, roundtable.
going.
Yeah, they're going. All right, I'm actually going to start today. So we had some people speak this earlier on a proposed ordinance. It's not an ordinance, 2109. And there's been a lot of discussions about that I've seen on social media, and I think it's important to explain to everybody a little bit about the process, because I think there's some misconceptions about what's going on, and maybe some misconceptions about that proposed ordinance as well. First off the bat, nobody is trying to end hunting in Queen Anne's County. Nobody's trying to end any sport shooting in Queen Anne's County. None of us would ever vote for that. So that
just put that to rest. That's just not accurate, not going to happen. In August 10th meeting, I think, at Press and Public Comment, we had 2 citizens who came forward, and they had some concerns about a possible business that was going to come to a shooting range near where they lived, and they voiced those concerns. And this is what Press and Public Comment is for. After that, there was some additional concerns that were raised. And one of the things that we are supposed to do as elected officials is listen to everybody's concerns. And we listen to the people who didn't vote for us and the people who did vote for us. We listen to the people who we agree with and that we don't agree with, right? That is our job. We took an oath after we got elected to listen to everybody. And so part of listening is giving people an opportunity to have their issues heard by government. That's one of the most important things we can do. It's actually a part of the Constitution. The First Amendment guarantees people a right to petition their government for their grievances and to have a hearing. So there was a comment earlier that somebody thought if an ordinance is sent up by a commissioner, that means that they are endorsing it. That's not necessarily the case. There's one time a year where the citizens can directly put in ordinances. The rest of the time, it's the commissioners that put it in. Sometimes we come up with ideas, and those are the ordinances that we put in. Other times, what is in is based upon citizen concerns. And what we do is we give them a vehicle for their voice to be heard. We don't guarantee them an outcome. We don't tell them their ordinance is going to get through. And we explain the process. So here's sort of what the process goes through. For this particular ordinance, it has just been sent to Planning and Zoning. When it's there, staff will review it. They look and see how it conforms with other provisions in the code, if there's some conflicts. Does there need to be any changes? One of the reasons that it goes through this process, and it was at a public commissioner hearing where this process got started, is so we can hear from the public. So I'm glad to see all of this communications on social media, because this is the exact purpose of this, to get it out there so people can comment. If there's language that's ambiguous and we need to fix it, that's one of the things that we're going to do. People who are against it, some people can come to the meeting and tell us. Some don't have the time to do that, so they call us or they email us. Some people are for it. This is the process, and we all of us strongly encourage that open and civic discussion about things. After Planning and Zoning staff looks at it, they make proposals, and it goes to the Planning Commission, right? The Planning Commission will advertise a hearing for this. There will be a public hearing. If you're in favor of it, you can show up and speak. If you're against it, you can show up and speak. And you're going to have the Planning Commission is going to listen to you. They're going to make a vote. They're going to say, we think it's great. They're going to say, we think it's terrible. They're going to say, I get the idea, but we need to tweak the language, and maybe they'll make some revisions. If they decide that it should go further or that there's some revisions and it should go forward, they make a recommendation, and then it will come to the county commissioners. We will then introduce it. We will have notice again. There'll be a 2-week notice. We'll have a hearing. The public gets to come to that again. You can speak in favor. You can speak against. We'll accept your emails. We'll put them in as part of the record. We all read all of the information that you send us into this. After the hearing, we'll have a 2-week period, usually sometimes a little bit more. We keep the record open to hear, is there any more people that want to comment? Did you not have a chance to make it to the meeting, but you want to submit something? So we can take that into consideration. And then there will be a vote on something. So all of this is just part of the process. Because something gets introduced or proposed does not mean it's law, does not mean it will become law. But this is democracy in action. This is open government and transparent government. And that's one of the things that, you hear again and again, people say they don't want, an old boys network. They want open and transparent government. The way you do that is by having these hearings and allowing the public to speak. So I encourage everybody to keep speaking, sending us emails, show up, tell us how you feel about it, for or against. But be careful about jumping to conclusions about what you think the outcome's going to be, because you don't know. None of us are going to make a decision until we hear from everybody. So that's sort of the process, and I think it's important for people to understand that. There have been things before us that people were dead set. They knew exactly how we were going to vote, and guess what? They were wrong. It didn't come out that way because we take the time to listen to everybody. Open government and protecting the integrity of the democratic process is one of the most important things we can do. We are stewards of that process, and that's something that we take very seriously. So I'm thinking everybody who has called me, sent us emails, showed up today, will show up at I think the Planning Commission will see it February 10th.
10th.
February 10th, the agenda will be posted. Come to that hearing. If you can't come to it, submit your comments. But if you're for it, come speak. And if you're against it, come speak. But I would ask one thing, and that is that when you're voicing your opinions on it, be passionate about the issue. But let's respect both the proponents and the opponents of these things. You heard from Mr. Schrader earlier. He's one of the people who does not want this to happen. And he runs a great business. They do great things for the county. The high school shooting team gets to use their facilities. They help the archery team out. They are good business, good people, right? There are people who want the change because their houses are right next to where this would go, and they're concerned about an increase in the frequency of firearm use when maybe they've worked all week and they want to be able to sleep in late on a Saturday and not hear the gunfire. None of these are wrong issues. These are all valid concerns they have, and that's why we have hearings, so we can hear from them. The most important thing is the process and the public gets heard, because all of your concerns are very important. So that's my sort of spiel of how a bill becomes a law in Queen Anne's County. I'm sorry if it's winded, but it's very important to me that the process is.
Are you going to sing the song from back in
How
the
a bill
70s?
becomes a law. I was going to do that and have Stevie dress up as the bill, but I didn't have the costume for him.
Okay, I was just checking.
So, but it's just important that people understand that we're listening to you, and we want you all to have a voice in how Queen Anne's County government responds in the laws we have. So, and I thank everybody for your comments. It's been respectful. Not all social media comments are, but the comments we've received are.
Yeah, and to stay in that vein just for a second, the social media, if we governed off social media, this country would be even worse off than we are, I think, in general, because the level of viciousness and just out and out, I don't know, contempt for each other when you're on opposite sides of an issue, to me is disgusting. It just, I don't know, it shows, I guess, to what level we've sank in this country in terms of how we treat our fellow people. Like Chris said, there's two sides to everything. And I will tell you, in my 6 years here, I've seen iterations of things that have gotten introduced and changed. It's kind of like that old telephone game when you were growing up. It starts over here as one thing, but by the time it gets spit out on this other end, it's totally different. And that happens a lot. So you may introduce something, and by the time it gets back to you, you go, I'm not voting for this. This is ridiculous. So that's just it. And again, it's the process that gets us there. It's the open, transparent process, which I even saw some comments where somebody said, well, a commissioner doesn't have to bring something forward. And for one commissioner to decide that a citizen's concerns aren't valid enough to bring forward for the other 5 of us to sit together and vote on after going through the process, I think is just irresponsible. I mean, that's what we're here for. Like Chris said, we took an oath to represent everybody. Yeah, we have to run as Republicans or Democrats or independents. But once we take that oath, we now represent everybody. We don't differentiate. When people call me, and I will say this right now, and God strike me dead if I'm wrong. When somebody calls me, I don't go, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? That is not my first question to people. I ask them what they need. So, all right, I'm done. Yeah.
Commissioner Wilt? Commissioner Moran.
All righty then. So, I just want to say thank you to staff and our DPW and Parks personnel for the hard work they did on the snow removal from back-to-back storms. I thought our roads were cleaned and well-maintained in a timely manner, so I appreciate that. And, getting back to COVID and getting back to whatever variant we have out there, please get your shots. Please get your shots. Anywhere you hear, you're going to hear that 80% of the people that are in the hospital, not on ventilators, but in the hospital, taking up space, don't have their vaccination. So, I think that we're now 2 years into this, and this is the new norm. So I think the public needs to just come to reality with it, and every year you'll get a shot, just like the flu. Every year you get a flu shot, and we're going to have to start living with this and stop being afraid to walk outside. And that's really all I got.
All righty.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, well, we have warned the public on a number of occasions that when we got to the dead of winter, the one thing that was pretty sure to happen was that the hospitals would jam up, and they did. And that at the time we spoke about that, one of the things we mentioned was getting a good connection with either a primary care guy or an urgency center. Well, you can try to find one of those now. You're going to be a long time looking because almost all the primary care people have closed up new patient practice. And even the head of the Medical Society of Maryland couldn't find a hospital bed the other day. So the situation is quite serious in hospital land. I will be pleased to tell everybody that our EMS service, the ambulance service, because we have provided for it, expecting this over a long period of time, it is right on top of it. We're not a bit behind, and we will continue to support it in the future as we did in the past, because probably a good number of the complaints that they get, calls they make, they often can solve themselves, and the transports we do are very slow, but we're still well on top of it, and thanks to the support of the commission and the public, on we go with that. I totally support President Corcorino's estimations about the bills that come in front of us, that far from being concluded in terms of the public expecting, well, they're going to vote this way. I have no idea what my fellow commissioners are ever going to do, and often myself. So, you know, it just depends which way the quarter comes up. So, anyway, that's it from me.
All right, entertain a motion.
So moved. To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that wraps it up. Thank you, everybody.